Hi guys, good evening. Welcome back once again to the EdWord. I'm your host Eddie, and in tonight's video I will be doing my episode review for the latest episode of Fear the Walking Dead. I just got done catching up on it just a few minutes ago and I loved it. This was an awesome episode, and before I get into all of the details and the good stuff, of course, please be warned that this is a spoiler-filled episode review. Again, if you're not caught up on this episode by this episode or the past couple episodes, don't keep watching or listening, as I will be going into spoilers. So, that being said, you have been warned. Let's jump right into it. Awesome episode. It was exciting. It was emotionally jarring. It was shocking. It certainly brought into the landscape and opened up the possibilities and potential for new stories and new characters. I love that they gave some layer of emotional depth to Logan. I figured, I was starting to suspect that Logan and his crew were working with another group or just another a community of people trying to secure this oil and this gasoline for their own usage, but we didn't know entirely what for. And his reasoning makes a lot of sense too. The fact that he was unable to help or save that poor woman who was eaten alive by walkers at the same little outpost spot where Wes ended up saving the poor girl, who I honestly thought had committed suicide when that first shot rang out. I thought, oh God, she really just killed herself over the radio. And I thought, hey, you know what? I kind of figured that was going to happen because of the show, the nature of this show and the show that it is. But unfortunately, that was not the case. Wes ended up killing the walkers and saving her from killing herself. But I just loved Logan's backstory as to why he became the way he did, and it also is a good example of how people can have such a ripple effect in this world, like the actions of Wendell and Sarah hijacking Clayton's truck, leaving him for dead, and then leaving Clayton unable to answer Logan's calls for help or for that poor woman's help, is what led to Logan teaming up with this Virginia woman and her gang of marauding cowboys, from the look of it, whose organization and group are clearly much bigger than we had realized. Because at first I thought it was just those 4 or 5 people, but they've got a small cavalry unit and then a hell of an infantry division as well. They had a lot of armed people with guns lining up right behind them, outnumbering all of our survivors. There were some great standoffs throughout this episode, and like I said, some emotionally jarring stuff. I loved how Logan was still obviously haunted and bothered by the fact that he couldn't help this woman, and I loved how bothered and haunted by the fact that Sarah and Wendell realized it was indirectly or directly their fault because of it, and how badly they're both trying to make up for what they did to Clayton and for other wrongs they've done. I love the theme of goodwill and redemption throughout this entire season. It's been very consistent. Say what you will about this season, about its consistency, but one of the most consistent things, in my opinion, has been the overall themes of redemption and goodwill. How most of our main characters and strong supporting characters are all trying to make up for stuff that they've done since the apocalypse, or at least since we've met them in this series. And it just makes for much more likable characters, because people are flawed. People make mistakes. People make or do questionable things that make you scratch your head or may enrage or disgust you, but they are people. We're all people. Good or bad, we're all just people. And I think that's what this episode was really about. Speaking of bad, I had realized it had been a while since we had any big character deaths, and this episode certainly did not disappoint on that front, because, they executed Matt Frewer. He was doing such an awesome job as Logan. He was such a great bad guy, or a complicated man, at least, if not a total villain. He was such a great, character. And then they ended up executing him and all his followers. They put them all down except for that prick who got hijacked by Dwight and Sarah. You know, he and that small group are still out there, probably left tied up somewhere by Dwight and Sarah. But pretty much Logan and all of his people are gone now. Of course, only to be replaced by a much bigger, well organized, and certainly more armed threat like Virginia and her followers, whose organization and group is probably much bigger than the people we saw at the oil fields. You know, there's probably a lot of them if they're that well organized and that well uniformed and dressed. Because at first I thought, are they wearing like old Confederate uniforms, kind of like the highwaymen wore the old cavalry uniforms back in this past season of Walking Dead? And I'm like, no, that'd be copying it too close for comfort. No, they're just, you know, cowboy. They're just wearing, you know, cowboy Western Texan attire, or, you know, something like that. But you know, one group of bad guys is gone, another one takes its place. And from what I can tell, these bad guys are like way more sinister than Logan and his people. You know, they were just trying to fulfill a deal they had made with Virginia and her people about supplying them with oil and gas. And now it looks like Luciana, you know, made the sacrificial move of staying with them. She didn't die. She just offered up her services because she had been living there for a while and knows how to separate the oil from the gas. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next couple episodes. Overall, though, loved this episode. I loved Logan's backstory, his emotional motivations, and I loved all the awesome character moments, like between Sarah and Wendell, Sarah and Logan, and how everybody thought that poor girl had offed herself, but she didn't. You know, it was just such an emotional and exciting episode, and I really enjoyed it. And hats off to Matt Frewer for doing an awesome job as playing one of this series' best villains, possibly. So well done, Mr. Frewer. Thank you for your services. All right, guys, have a great rest of the night. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, new episodes of Fear the Walking Dead air every Sunday night on AMC. Check back to this channel for more regularly scheduled episode reviews and uploads now that I'm back, and I'm back on schedule. Have a great rest of your night, and of course, until next time, may the Force be with you.